Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to have a look at how the DAX has been unfolding this morning. The DAX is the future of the German stock market, and I thought this was very topical because the fundamental news is all about Greece defaulting on its debt possibly tomorrow, and all the chaos that could bring with the euro, and obviously we know Germany is one of the main players in the European Union, so obviously this is going to have an effect on the German stock market. So let's have a look at what the DAX has been doing this morning. You can see it gapped down on the open really significantly after the talks over the weekend, but let's have a look at to see what the large degree trend is for this. This is a 3-minute chart, so let's come down to the 15-minute chart and see if we can gauge any potential support zones. As you can see, the gap was so big this morning, it's very difficult to get any support zones on the 15-minute chart. So let's go out to a slightly higher time frame, and again to see if we can get a slightly larger degree picture. Well, here we have a bit better picture in that we have a potential ABC correction here down into this TS3 buy setup here. So this was a logical place to be able to do DP support from. So let's right mouse click here, do DP, and that is our support zone. If we drag that across to today, you can see that caught the low really nicely. The next zone below that would be off probably this low here, which obviously we haven't got to yet. But can you see how that was an ABC correction before the move up? So that was a pivot you could use for support. So there you had an area of potential support, and remember that would have been on your chart literally for days and days and days and days, even before the market got there. So let's come down to our 3-minute chart and see what that looks like. Well, here's our hourly support. The market's been rallying up quite nicely from that, so therefore you'd only be looking for long trades. So long trades off higher time frame support. Let's zoom in a bit. We had some sell setups along here, so you'd been avoiding these. You'd have then had some buy setups here. Let's zoom in a bit. Right mouse click over this blue buy bar, place the analysis on, and you can see actually for here, using our correct position sizing, on a sample $20,000 account, the risk would have actually been too big to take a 2% risk. 2% of $20,000 is $400, so this initial risk at 547 was actually too much. So this is good for one thing in the MTPredictor software program. It will stop you being overexposed for taking too big a risks. Let's just clear this off, clear all analysis, and you can see we had another TS4 buy setup here. Let's place the analysis on here, and again risk exceeded because the initial risk was too big for our $20,000 account. Let's clear that all off again. Remember, we're looking for buy setups because the larger trend was up, but now a bit later on we had a TS1 buy setup here. Let's now place the analysis on this particular trade, and lo and behold, the initial risk was only about $300, $294, therefore it was a trade you could take. Now the question being is, do you want to just come out at this first target here? If you had have done it, it would be a nice 3-hour profit, or did you want to let the trade run a little bit more? Remember, these sell setups here would be ignoring because the large degree trend was up. Well, let's replace the analysis on from some of our setups down here and see where their targets would have been. Their targets would have been up here, which would have been the DP off this prior pivot here, up there. So let's now look at what we could have done by using the analysis on these trade setups to manage our TS1 long trade. Right mouse click, analysis. So rather than coming out at this particular level, we'd have then looked to come up to this level here for our higher time frame target. And can you see how suddenly that would have increased your profit to almost 10 times the initial risk? I think this is one thing traders often do, is they trade what we call scared money. In other words, they want to come out so quickly. In other words, they're very unwilling to let their trades run to higher targets. But only by doing this, allowing your trades to run, can they accumulate the big profits. So this is why it's sometimes better to look for higher or larger degree profits that make sense, obviously, to then manage your trades, and that will allow you then to have larger profits. If we look at our STF, it would have been nice if this was above our strength band. It wasn't because the prior pivot there was basically just so large, but if you did want to, you could trail with your ATR stop. But I think a 10-hour profit would be very nice indeed. For people who are a little bit more experienced as well, if I go back a bit, you can see that the rally off this large degree 60-minute low down here was actually a 5-wave sequence. If we right mouse click over this pivot high, you can see it's lovely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that again shows an impulsive move unfolding off the low. Ideally, we'd have looked for this this wave 5 to correct into the DP from the prior wave 4. So this would have been an area where we've been looking for support, but as you can see, these TS4 buy setups just missed that. In fact, they came in just about the area of the wave 4 low, because if I put a low tag on the low of that wave 4 pivot, you can see that this ABC correction did come in the area of the wave 4, which again is pretty typical of the correction after a 5-wave sequence. So this again was pointing to a continued rally above, or to continue above, the previous wave 5 high. So yet again, that's another reason why this TS1 buy setup you'd want to let run a little bit further to targets above the prior pivot high, which was here. So that makes sense in allowing that to go a bit higher. So hopefully this has been a good example again of how to use the MTPredictor software program to not only capture great trades like this, but also control your risk and avoid positions where your initial risk would be too small, to also use larger targets and also look at patterns within the market. But also, more importantly than that, basically gauge that all in the larger degree direction. In other words, we put our DP support zones on our higher time frame charts. Remember at the beginning of this video, I went back to this previous low here, which was the end of an ABC correction. If I just put that on, you can see there's the ABC correction. So that's a logical place to use for our DP. That projected our support zone out there in advance. Remember, that would have been on the chart before today even opened. So of course, when the market came down and opened in this level and started to rally, again, that would have given you the confidence that the large degree trend was up. So hopefully this has been a good example of a nice trade that's unfolded this morning on the DAX, and I just like to show this one as well because it fits in the context of the fundamental stuff that's going on in and around Europe at the moment with the Greek debt crisis and how that would affect the Euro, Europe and Germany. And it's just nice when we have MTPredictor analysis all falling in on markets like this where other people will be saying, oh, there's all confusion here, we don't quite know what's happening. Well, the MTPredictor software program does, and allows you to find trades where the initial risk is kept small and under control, and allows you to then define profit targets where the profits are much larger than the initial risk, and that's basically the key to successful trading. So here's the result of this particular trade. You could either come out at this target for a potential 10-hour profit, so that's potentially 10 times greater than the initial risk, or you could be looking to trail with your ATR stop here and just see where the market goes. The choice is basically up to you at that particular point in time. But either way, the result will be a very nice and big profitable trade this morning on the DAX, which is Monday, the 29th of June 2015.